custom and practice, this is the one where you do get a lot of the unions knocking on the door, or a group of employees saying, when you've got a new manager often coming in saying, right, we're going to do it this way, they go, no, hang on a minute, we've always done it like this. It's custom and practice, we do it like this. And often when you say, well, why do you do it like this? Nobody actually can give you a better reason other than, but we've always done it like this. So where you're looking at things like change management, for example, which is obviously an area that people might have to look at in the current economic climate, this sometimes raises its head. So if a union or a group of employees come in and say, no, this is custom and practice, do they genuinely have a legal point here? Is it something that is a contractual right that you're going to have to negotiate with them in order to change? Custom and practice, it can be something that's regularly adopted in a particular trade or industry or in a particular area. So this could be something like particular pay rates for apprentice electricians that you have always paid, and you always take them into account, but it's not written down anywhere that says you will actually pay that particular rate, but it's nationally negotiated and you've always complied with that particular rate. It can be confined to a particular establishment within your organisation. If it is confined to a particular chunk of your organisation, then it's actually for the employee and or the trade union to prove that this custom and practice exists. Right? So again, a lot of people tend to shy away from this custom and practice argument because they think, well, I can't prove that it didn't happen. Well, in reality, the burden of proof is on them to prove that it is agreed, and it hasn't just been something that's slipped in under the manager's radar. It is something that has been agreed and done with agreement and acknowledgement from the management and the company. Also, the court doesn't find it lightly. They will be looking for proof that it happens. And the reason the court doesn't find it lightly is because the general legal principle is if there's an express term in the contract to the contrary, that takes precedence over something that they're calling custom and practice, unless they can prove otherwise. The other two tests that the court are looking for is it's got to be reasonable, notorious and certain. That sounds much more like some sort of, 1920s gangster. What do we mean by reasonable? Well, we mean fair. Apparently that's the definition of reasonable, something that's fair. You could probably argue that some of the custom and practices your employees are sort of throwing at you to be custom and practices you wouldn't say were fair at all. Notorious, established and well known. This is has it been something that has slipped under the management radar and people have just started doing and it was never actually agreed or accepted by anybody. It has to be certain, people have to know about it. The expression that the courts use is clear cut. So reasonable, notorious and certain effectively means fair, established and well known and clear cut. So that's the further definitions they give of that. Also, was it ex gratia or discretionary? Was it a one-off? Was somebody allowed to do this 10 years ago as a one-off for a particular reason? And then they've then decided to take the mickey by doing it constantly, and then everybody else in the team has started doing it, and it's just basically gone on without management knowledge or approval. So in reality, if somebody comes to you with a custom and practice argument, yes, they might be right, because if custom and practice is there, it can make it a change to the contract, as long as they can actually prove it and show it was reasonable, notorious, certain, and it wasn't just a one-off that was ex gratia or discretionary. So there are ways to challenge those employees or those trade unions that come in and say, this is custom and practice, you can't change it without our agreement and we're never going to agree and all this sort of thing.